Today's show's a barn burner, I gotta tell you. Even though they were branded as the second coming of the Beatles and they would actually compete with them, today's band wasn't actually a band at all. They were the ultimate pretenders. Actors assembled to play struggling musicians on TV. But you know what? The struggle was real. Unhappy with faking it, this manufactured band wanted to prove that they could play. But their musical supervisor wouldn't let them. I mean, they could sing, they could dance, but they were forbidden to play their own instruments. The tension then got so bad, one band member called their #1 hit song a piece of crap. Pissing off their producer, he was actually banned from the studio while it was being recorded. And the conflict wouldn't end there. He then called their second album the worst in the history of the world. It's a crazy story of how four pretenders went head to head with one of the industry's biggest hitmakers. But was there any way they could win this battle? Find out next, a special episode of Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you were ever on the losing end of begging your parents for sugar cereal like Lucky Charms or Fruity Pebbles, you're gonna dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the big red button and click the bell so you always know when our latest interviews and videos come out. Also check us out on Patreon for even more content. You can become an honorary producer and help us curate this music history. It's very important. Here they come, walking down the street. They get the funniest looks from everyone they meet. And with those introductory lyrics, you already know who I'm talking about. It's the Monkees.
Hey, we're the Monkees, and people say we monkey around.
This fighting foursome may not have been hired to actually be a rock and roll band, but you know what? They rose above all accusations of being fakes and phonies to prove that they actually were. And I can't think of a better song with which to tell their story than today's featured track, I'm a Believer, one of the greatest songs in history.
I saw her face, now I'm a believer.
Let's jump into it. The origin story of the Monkees begins in the summer of 1965. It starts with an advertisement in New York's Daily Variety for a new NBC television series, and this is what the ad read. Madness, auditions, folk and roll musicians, singers, for acting roles in new TV series, running parts for four insane boys aged 17 to 21. Inspired by the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night and fully looking to capitalize on Beatlemania, US TV producers Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider threw together auditions for a show that was going to be about a struggling pop band. In all, 437 boys responded, including Stephen Stills and future Three Dog Night vocalist Danny Hutton. There are actually rumors that all three, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, auditioned, but some of those rumors have been shot down amongst others. Neither of these guys made the cut. Rather, the final four was whittled down to guitarist-songwriter Michael Nesmith, bassist and folk musician Peter Tork, former child actor Mickey Dolenz, and the British actor-singer Davey Jones. Dubbed the Prefab Four, the Monkees were created not to be a band, but for pretend to be one on TV. Hired primarily for their acting skills, according to People magazine, the four were expected to clown on camera and sing catchy tunes written by some of the top professionals in the business. That's why everybody wanted to be a part of this. Behind the scenes, though, they would be propped up by the man with the golden ear, Don Kirshner. Kirshner was one of the industry's biggest hit makers, and he had a roster of top songwriters and studio players at his disposal. I mean, he was given complete creative control over the music of the project.
Funniest looks from everyone we meet.
Early sessions were completed by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart and their backing band, the Candy Store Prophets, with the Monkees overdubbing vocals. Four of Boyce and Hart's demos were picked up for the show's pilot, including the theme from the Monkees. I actually had a chance to interview Bobby Hart some years ago about this. Actually, the Monkees' first single, Last Train to Clarksville, was written by Boyce and Hart.
Take the last train to Clarksville and I'll meet you at the station.
That one dropped on August 16, 1966, predating the debut of the TV show by about a month. Last Train to Clarksville sold more than 500,000 copies in 3 weeks and has scored a #1 ranking on the US Billboard Hot 100. The show and his mock band were off to an incredible start, really. The TV program and its music was wildly popular with teens across America. The show's producers were ready to capitalize on this. So releasing the Monkees' self-titled debut record on October 10th, young audiences already knew the songs by heart by the time it hit the shelves. However, critics almost unanimously agreed that these Beatle knockoffs were just a bunch of phonies. And they also said they would fast be forgotten. That was their take. But the real hang-up was the Monkees' participation in the music, or lack thereof, really. The four band members were given little opportunity to contribute to the album, outside of the vocals, really. And they were starting to be ridiculed as musical puppets. This was particularly vexing to both Michael Nesmith and Peter Tork, who were already musicians before being cast in the show. Nesmith, in particular, repeatedly petitioned Kirshner to let them do more than just sing the songs. Now, Kirshner, for his part, fed the guys false promises, whenever the subject would come up. After Last Train to Clarksville, Kirshner asked producer Jeff Barry to find a follow-up hit for the Monkees' next single. It had to be a blockbuster, though. So Barry chose I'm a Believer by the great Neil Diamond. He'd just broken out earlier in 1966 with Cherry Cherry.
She got the way to move me, Cherry. She got the way to move me.
Diamond had originally intended I'm a Believer to be recorded by country artist Eddie Arnold, if you can believe that. He was surprised to find out Kirshner wanted it for the Monkees. When Neil played it for the golden-eared Kirshner, he immediately knew it was a major, major giant song, in his words. But Diamond was dead set against giving up the publishing rights, said Kirshner about it. Neil gave me a hard time because he wanted half the publishing. Although I wound up with the whole thing, I was a nervous wreck for about a month because he just held out. Now, as part of the deal, Neil Diamond was allowed to record the song as well. In 2008, Mojo magazine asked Neil if he resented the success that the Monkees had had with this song, his song. To the contrary, he replied, I was thrilled because at heart I was still a songwriter and I wanted my songs on the charts. I couldn't have cared less because I had to pay the rent and the Monkees were selling records and I wasn't being paid for my records. But although Neil Diamond was content with the deal, I'm a Believer would be a source of fiery contention behind the scenes for the Monkees. Once again, the Monkees sang and danced, but they didn't play any instruments as Kirshner turned to his prized session players for the track. I mean, a lot of people didn't complain about this when the Wrecking Crew was doing their stuff, but the Monkees wanted to do it. Infuriated, Michael Nesmith continued to demand a larger role in the creative process. Tensions further escalated when Kirshner replaced Nesmith with Dolenz on lead vocals. Yeah, he was supposed to sing the lead. Things only got worse from there. Nesmith, Tork, and Jones were all slotted to sing backing vocals. However, Nesmith started barking at producer Jeff Barry, basically telling him the song was a piece of crap. Reportedly, Nesmith said, I'm a songwriter, and that's no hit. The argument got so bad that Barry banned Nesmith from the studio while Mickey recorded his lead vocal. So actually, we've only got 3 out of 4 Monkees singing on this one. A lot of people don't know this. And there's no doubt about it. Michael Nesmith was dead wrong about his assessment of I'm a Believer. I mean, this song was so popular, even before it was released, it racked up 1,051,000 advance orders, making it the biggest pre-sale order since the Beatles' Can't Buy Me Love. That's how big it was. And after its release, I'm a Believer, which was backed by I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, it didn't disappoint. It went straight to #1 on the Hot 100 within 4 weeks, and it stayed there for a total of 7 weeks. It was the biggest song of that year.
Love was out to get me. That's the way it seemed. I'm not your stepping stone.
Went to #1 on the Cashbox chart as well. Around the globe, I'm a Believer went to #1 pretty much everywhere. Australia, South Africa, Germany, Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Finland, Norway, the Philippines, Canada, Austria, Ireland, and of course the United Kingdom. The single sold over 3 million copies in America in its first 2 months on the market, and over 750,000 in Britain on the RCA label. Global sales of the single are estimated at around, get this, 10 million. 10 million! Last Train to Clarksville may have been the Monkees' first US #1 hit, but I'm a Believer launched them into the international superstardom stratosphere. The Monkees were now holding their own against the Stones and the Beach Boys and the Beatles.
I thought love was more or less a given thing.
Sadly, the enormous success of I'm a Believer did little to remedy the bitterness between one Mike Nesmith and Don Kirshner, though, and Nesmith decided it was time to take his case to the public. Holding nothing back, he told the press, and I quote, "The music has nothing to do with us. It was totally dishonest. Do you know how debilitating it is to have to duplicate somebody else's records? That's really what we were doing. Maybe we were manufactured and put on the air strictly with a lot of hoopla. Tell the world that we're synthetic because, damn it, we are." End of quote.
Seems the more I gave, the less I got.
Now, as we continue to break down the song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I always wear on here. Man, Zenni's having incredible deals all the time. Especially actually right now on frames, you can actually get 3 or 4 pair of frames for what one would cost you elsewhere. You can design your own look with so many styles to choose from. I gotta tell you, the quality is amazing, and you can even do a virtual try-on to see exactly how you're gonna look before you buy. Click on our special info button right up here to get up to 80% off regular retail prices. Zenni is the only way to go.
What's the use in trying? All you get is pain.
So the unifying event for all 4 Monkees finally came on January 15th, 1967 at a Cleveland record store. I guess the guys were browsing through albums only to discover that they had a new record out and they didn't know about it. You believe that? They had a record out, none of them knew about it. It was called More of the Monkees. They were shocked. Then after listening to it, shock turned into anger. They were furious that it had been released without their consent, and once again without giving them a chance to contribute at all. The Monkees had been intentionally kept out of the loop. They were one of the biggest bands out there and they didn't even know. Even the liner notes were a slap in the face. It listed the names of Kirshner's staff of songwriters before it ever mentioned the Monkees. Said Peter Tork about it. The back liner notes were Don Kirshner congratulating all of his boys for the wonderful work they'd done, and oh yeah, the record is by the Monkees. It was very hard to take. And you can bet that Nesmith had something to say about it. In response to the record, he said, "I regard the More Monkees album as probably the worst album in the history of the world." But in what must have been a bittersweet reality, the album, it was a massive success. More of the Monkees went on to sell over 5 million copies and become the group's best-selling album ever. However, commercial success or not, a storm was on the horizon, and the Monkees, they had something to say about it. With Kirshner and his crew already heading up sessions for the Monkees' 3rd album, the group decided to record 2 songs of their own in private. The Girl I Knew Somewhere and All of Your Toys. They were determined to prove once and for all that not only could they sing the songs, but they could write and play them as well. Still, Don Kirshner didn't back down, and he continued to gaslight this band. Tensions continued to increase until the foursome, they threatened to quit the show, the TV show. And ultimately, they convinced the show's producers, Rafelson and Schneider, to give them a shot. So the agreement was to feature an all Monkees track as a B-side on their next single. Of course, Kirshner hated the idea, and he went behind the studio's back to release the single that he wanted. It featured A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You. That was the A-side, and She Hangs Out. That was the B-side. Although A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You would reach number 2 on the Hot 100, Kirshner, he really screwed himself here. For his deceit, the man with the golden ear, he was removed from the Monkees project altogether. It's a little bit me. It's a little bit me. After that, Mike, Mickey, Davey, and Peter, they were given full creative control over their next album. They called it Headquarters. It was released on May 22nd, 1967. Headquarters was a commercial and artistic success consisting largely of self-penned material. The album actually went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, went to number 2 in the UK, and number 1 in Canada as well. From there, the Monkees would release 3 more albums as a quartet. Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones Limited, that was in 67. The Birds, the Bees, and the Monkees in 68, and of course the soundtrack to their feature movie Hat. That was also in 68. The guys racked up 3 more hit singles between 67 and 68. There's Pleasant Valley Sunday and Valerie. Those both reached number 3 on the Hot 100. And then Daydream Believer went all the way to number 1.
Another Pleasant Valley Sunday.
However, by this point, the popularity of the Monkees television show started to fall off. After just 2 seasons, the final episode was aired on March 25th, 1968. After the demise of the show and the release of their film Head, a disillusioned Peter Tork left the band. The trio then continued on together for 2 more albums before Michael Nesmith left for a solo career in 1969. In 1970, Mickey Dolenz and Davey Jones recorded the Monkees' 9th studio album, Changes, before the band finally gave up the ghost. Then 1975 would see the two rejoin their former songwriting team to create Dolenz, Jones, Boyce and Hart. They toured under the banner of the Great Golden Hits of the Monkees show. Then in the 80s, the Monkees' reputation was strengthened considerably when Rhino Records reissued their entire back catalog. Additionally, the entire TV series was released on Nick at Night. Then in 1986, it was a return to Monkey Mania when Arista Records released a new Monkees Greatest Hits collection. I remember buying that as a kid. This one featured 3 new songs with Tork and Dolenz on vocals, including the Monkees' Meet the 80s number 20 hit, That Was Then, This Is Now. Dolenz, Jones, and Tork would also reunite to tour North America, resurrecting their television personas and wowing for nostalgia-starved audiences. Following year, the trio released Pool It, their 10th studio album. Finally, in 1996, fans got a full-on 4-monkey reunion when the band released Justice. Also in the 90s, the band began to make more frequent pop culture appearances, particularly with their signature song, I'm a Believer.
Well, then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer.
You can hear it in The Wonder Years, in The Simpsons, Beverly Hills 90210, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, Jack and Jill, Gilmore Girls.
Else, but not for me.
And of course, the biggest placement is the closing track for 2001 Shrek, covered for the soundtrack by Smash Mouth.
I'm a believer.
That version went to number 25 on the Hot 100, and it helped rekindle the song's popularity, and it introduced it to a whole new generation. Sadly, though, in the new millennium, we've witnessed the passing of 3 Monkee icons. We lost Davey Jones on February 29, 2012. We lost Peter Tork on February 21st, 2019, and Michael Nesmith on December 10th, 2021. Leaving only Mickey Dolenz to carry the torch. Although mocked by many contemporary critics, the original band's work is now considered some of the best American pop from its era. I mean, the Monkees fought hard to make us all believers. And you know what? Going on 6 decades later, we still are. Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about the Monkees. What are your memories of I'm a Believer and of the Monkees? I remember watching the Monkees with my dad, and he shared so many cool memories about when he used to watch it. And he kind of said he secretly liked the Monkees, even though he tried to be cool in front of his friends. And he said, I don't know why I was trying to be cool. They're great, and they are great. The Monkees are, let's have a great discussion. What other songs should we cover? I've interviewed Bobby Hart. I've got the story of all their songs that Boyce and Hart did. Let us know. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.